So, hello everybody, great to have you all here with us this evening. So this is the Duke of Edinburgh Award Silver Expedition by Canoe for silver, those doing the Silver Award. Hopefully this will give you all the information that you need about doing expeditions with us. So to give you some bit of background about me, my name's Joy Martin. I know there's lots of people here from the Littleport area. I was actually brought up at Blackhorse Drove, so to actually be doing expeditions for young people who live in Littleport, for me, is personally brilliant. That's really, really exciting. So I was brought up in the Littleport area. I then went off and trained as a teacher. In my first school teaching, the head asked me to run D&V, and I thought, oh, what fun. Little did I know that 30, 40 years later, I would still be running Duke of Edinburgh Award expeditions. I really enjoyed it. I just enjoy being outdoors with young people. I enjoy their learning, I suppose their learning curve. I had some young people this afternoon. They'd never canoed before, they'd never sat in a boat, and yet by the end of it, they were going forwards and backwards and steering all the rest of it. And it's just that learning curve and that sense of achievement I love. So I started off life as a science teacher. I then got into youth work, did lots of youth work with young people in the outdoors because I realized the outdoors was so effective for working with young people. I then worked with young people at university, and then I then got back into doing Duke of Edinburgh's Award in schools, and that was just at the time when the D&V was changing from being a kind of school-based, volunteer-based organisation, really because of the need for qualified staff. And surprise, surprise, as is the case at Littleport, the staff aren't qualified, which is what is needed for risk assessments and insurance to run expeditions. So D&V came up with this idea of people becoming approved to run expeditions. So that was the point when I jumped all the hoops to become approved. So that was about 10 years ago. So although I've been running and working with young people in the outdoors, both walking and canoeing for all of my career, it's just been the last 10 years that I've been an approved activity provider and ran walking and canoeing expeditions, walking and canoeing, and both locally, so on our local rivers, the Great Ouse, the Cam, the Wissey, as well as on the River Wye and the River Severn. Also led them in Sweden for gold and up in Scotland, which is great fun. Don't run them all on my own. The main person I run them with is a guy called Rod White. He's based over in North Wales, and though he's often on most expeditions, so I just want to kind of introduce him to you. He comes with his dog Rolo, who's in the boat there. That was us on the River Dee last year, I think, or maybe it was the year before. I have my dog, normally it's Poppy, but Poppy is now 15. So the likelihood of her making the summer is probably low. But Nala is my little black lab who will be coming with us. So Rod is highly qualified. He's a mountain instructor. He leads mountain instructor courses, but he's also a level 5 canoe, sea kayak and open boat coach. So hopefully that just shows you that we are well qualified and well experienced to be running expeditions. So this is what we had to do. I had to set up a company and had to become an approved activity provider for Duke of Edinburgh's Award. So it just means that all our expeditions are approved by D&V, and we have all the risk assessments and all the insurances in place. Just for those of you who maybe don't understand the difference between open and closed expeditions, if for those of you I know on the call tonight are coming from Littleport, yours will be a closed expedition, so it's just young people from Littleport that will be part of that. We are also running open expeditions, so if there's other people who see this maybe recording on Zoom and want to do their silver expedition with us, or maybe you can't do the dates that either Littleport or your school are doing, you can join our open expeditions and email me and I can give you the dates for those. We're doing the training at Easter, and then we're doing the assessed expedition later in the summer. So what are the expeditions about? The expeditions are about inspiring young people to develop initiative, a sense of adventure and discovery by planning for and training and completing an adventurous expedition as part of a team. And I just love that because it is the young people who are doing it. They're planning it, they're organizing it, they're getting trained, and they're going off and doing an adventurous expedition. DofE say that for silver, it has to be a minimum, the assessed expedition has to be a minimum of 3 days and 2 nights. They have to do at least 7 hours of activity. So that's 7 hours journeying. Well, it's between, at least 4 hours have to be journeying. Some of it can be exploring. So certainly on some of our rivers. So for river expeditions, we are limited by where the campsites are. So I've negotiated with some really lovely farmers on both the Wissey and the Little Ouse, and on the Old West, for us to be able to stay on their riverbanks. But it does mean we are limited to those places. So if the river's moving fast, or if the wind's in the right direction, then if students are potentially going to get there quicker, they then have to go and do a bit of exploring. I'm really, hopefully you've already kind of got the idea that I really believe in what I'm doing. And what I hope is that this journey is one that's going to be the first of many. I want to inspire and equip young people to go on journeys, whether they're canoeing or walking or camping or whatever they are, that this adventure, but it sounds like most of you have already done your bronze. So this will be the second of many adventures. Of course, we want the expeditions to be safe. We want them to be secure. We want them to be social. We want them to have great fun. So as young people, we want it to be great fun. We want you to enjoy it. Is it going to be fun all the way? No, because when it's raining and when it's dark and when you're cold, then it won't be quite such fun. But looking back on it, we're really hoping you will have created loads of memories, and maybe made friends that you then go on to have for the rest of your life. DofE has 20 conditions. Now, hopefully, Mrs. Emmas will have talked with you about those when you were doing your bronze, but we are governed by these 20 conditions. I don't want to go through them now with you, but it's those 20 conditions that the whole expedition is based around. So that's what determines what a completed expedition is, what a pass is. So you can turn up whenever you like. Getting lost on a river is difficult, but getting lost doesn't matter. It's how you respond to the situation. Sorry. So what our plan is that for the silver expedition, you have a training and prep. We do our training directly before the practice expedition. So you do 1 day's training, you then camp overnight, and then we do the practice expedition. We have it based at Hockwold. A lovely couple there who let us use their field to camp on. And then we canoe down the Little Ouse, and we end up at the bottom near Blackhorse Drove, for those of you who know the area. So just where you hit Brandon Creek, so where the ship is, instead of turning right to go down to Denver Sluice, you turn left and you go up just a little way. And we've got a campsite that we use there. So that would be the practice expedition, and then you finish hopefully up the Wissey at Wissington Beet Factory, which is great because it's a really nice big car park and it's an easy place to finish. Then for the assessed expedition, I'm giving 2 options on this, and I'll talk about it a bit later, but the plan will be to come down from the Old West from Erith or Huntington, then you hit the Great Ouse, and you either go up the Cam or we come down to Ely. It really depends on what the wind is doing. And also I'd love to have consultation with the school about just at that time as to which is the best route to take, but I'll give you more about that. So what would happen from now, once you've signed up, we would do pre-expedition training. So there's an expedition DofE training framework. So on your eDofE, there's all sorts of things that you need to do before you actually come on expedition. And we'd do a Zoom call, which would enable you to do some of your training. And some of that training you would do in school with the school staff, but we would give you, we've got a whole load of JoyofAdventure YouTube videos that would enable you to know all the stuff that you need. It's great now with there's all this technology because it gives us the information that we need. So one of the things you need to do is plan your route. It's not as difficult. Obviously, navigating on a river isn't as difficult as navigating if you're walking. Although it's amazing how many people, instead of turning left at the ship, turn right, and we then have to chase them down to Denver Slough to bring them back in. So navigating is really important. You will plan your route and your route card. Where are you going to have your lunch break? Where are you going to get off and go and have a look at things? What's your aim going to be, and all that sort of stuff. You do need to do first aid training. We've got permission from British Canoeing for you to do their online first aid training. So you do their online first aid training, which gives you a kind of a broad base of what the first aid you need for canoeing. And then on the first training day, we would then do some more canoe specific first aid training. We will also talk to you about kit and equipment. So we'll talk about that in the Zoom. We've got YouTubes on it. And we will also talk to you about ponchos. I like this picture. This was a goal group. And ponchos, they're a £5 from Decathlon. And they are fantastic because they just go over everything. You don't really need much more kit than what you would have had for your bronze expedition. So your walking kit works. The only difference would be that you wouldn't wear walking boots. Welly boots would be the best thing. And I'm guessing, seeing as you all live in Littleport and having been brought up there, most of you, I guess, have got wellies. Working with young people in Cambridge, most of them don't have wellies, but I'm guessing most of you do have wellies. But they're definitely the best thing for keeping your feet, at certainly the Eastery time, warm and dry. As Rod often says, any idiot can be wet and cold. It takes a little bit of thought to be warm and dry. We'll also talk to you about food and menu. The great thing about the difference between walking expeditions and canoeing expeditions is that weight doesn't matter. So you can have all sorts of things. So you can bring tins with you, that works. I've also had people bring steak and chips. So you can bring all sorts of things because you will be putting them into waterproof barrels where they'll stay both warm, they'll stay cool, but also they'll stay dry. Every expedition has to have an aim. This was one that one group did. They did an art aim, which was just great. So they did all sorts of things they did on the ground as they were going along. We've also had people test the water. We've had people do yoga as they've come down river. We've had people take pictures of bridges. There's all sorts of things you can do for your aim for your expedition. So the first time we meet you in person will be for your canoe expedition skills training. So you will turn up with Hochwold with all your stuff in bags like this. So whether it's an IKEA bag or a laundry bag, you will bring all your kit in those bags. When you get there, this is the field at Hochwold, and you'll see we'll have set it up with your the blue barrels, which is you'll have a blue barrel each, and the barrels are all numbered, so you know which your one is, and you'll put all your stuff into those barrels. Everybody gets their own numbered paddle. Particularly for those who knows what coronavirus will be doing by then, but the fact you've got your own barrel and your own paddle and you'll share a boat means that you're reducing the risk. Okay, the barrels are numbered and they're also waterproof, but we do recommend that for your clothes and your sleeping bag, you do buy a lightweight dry bag. Or if not, get a really heavy duty plastic bag so you can just organize everything in your barrels, because what you don't want to do is have your food and all your clothes and everything all mixed up, nor do you want your clothes and your sleeping bag, the two things that are crucial, to get wet because you've not put the lid on properly. Okay, I really like this next photo, but my computer's just going through a little bit of a update, which it would do just in the middle of this, wouldn't it? But this next photo is some ducks that came and sat on some boats. I don't know if you can see them. There's two ducks that are sitting there in the middle of that boat. So when you get to Hochwold on your training day, we'll get you to put your tents up. You need to be able to show us that you're competent in putting your tents up. I'm guessing those of you from Littleport will have practiced putting your tents up at the school before you come. Always useful to do that, to make sure you've got the right poles with the right inner and the right outer. Then we'll get you on the water. Okay, well, we'll get you on the land to start with, and we'll talk to you about boats, and you'll do some land paddling, and then you'll get into the water. Okay, so we'll teach you about going forwards, about going backwards, how's the easiest way to turn your boat round, and you can see just how beautiful it is. Those of you who know the area, it's just downriver from Brandon, and it's a beautiful, beautiful bit of river. It's just near to the RSPB. There's a kingfisher that nests just opposite. It's just lovely. You'll then pack your barrels. So on the YouTube videos, we give you some information about how to do that, what needs to go into the barrels, and then you may then have an extra bag, which is your day bag, and then anything else that doesn't fit in goes into an IKEA bag. But really you want to try and get everything into those blue barrels if possible, because if you capsize, and the boats are really, really stable, but if you're a muppet and you decide to all lean over one end or all stand up, then there is a possibility that you might go in. You don't want all your stuff to get wet. We'll also teach you about how to use a tarp. So a tarp's are really great. So it means that if it's raining, the whole group can get under the tarp, and you can then cook under the tarp, which just makes it really social. It's amazing how many times we don't have rain on our expeditions. Maybe I'm putting things against us now, but this was probably the only time we've actually had rain on an expedition. I think we're really lucky living in East Anglia. So you will then start cooking your tea. Okay, so we will have talked to you about food, and you will have your supper and you'll cook your supper. Okay, we'll also talk about stove hygiene and stove safety and hygiene. We don't want you hurting yourself, and we also don't want you getting sick because you have your food all spread on the grass. Okay, that night you'll camp either by the river, which we do sometimes, or in the other field, and it's just great fun. Okay, that's the campsite without the tents on it, and you can see my dog Poppy there, and it's the kingfisher that just lives in those trees on the right. This is also a beautiful river for swimming in, except for, unfortunately, on DV, we can't allow folks to go swimming, but we do really encourage you to cool off. And the difference between swimming and cooling off is that for cooling off, you keep your buoyancy aid on. Obviously, we need to make sure you're safe. We're not always there. We want you to be able to have the freedom to adventure on your own. So cooling off means that you keep your buoyancy aid on. There is always one person on the side, and you are never cooling off on your own, and never when it's dark. Okay, so cooling off, you keep your buoyancy aid on, and this is a lovely bit of river to cool off in. I've cooled off there a number of times in the last few years. So the next day you will set off from Hockwold, and you'll go along the Little Ouse, and you'll end up at the Millennium Wood campsite. Little Ouse is lovely. Being Littleport folks, I'm guessing some of you know that. We will, to start with, paddle with you, just to make sure that you're all okay. And then we'll meet you at certain places as you go along. You'll stop wherever you want to, and at lunch breaks you'll get out and you'll explore and you'll go and see what's around. Okay, and then you'll end up then at the Millennium Wood campsite. You lift all your barrels up, you leave the boats on the side of the river, and you then will bring your stuff up into the Millennium Wood. A Millennium Wood campsite's great. It's all surrounded by trees, and the good thing is that you can have fires there. So there's these wooden shelters, and then there's also fire pits. So that's great, and you'll have a fantastic evening there. Next morning you'll set off. You'll go down the Great Ouse, and if the wind is in the right direction, which we hope, you may well be able to sail that bit. So you can sail from Blackwellsgrove basically all the way down to Denver, depending on what the wind's doing. And then you'll turn up the Wissey, and you'll end up going up the Wissey. Somewhere along there you'll have lunch, and you will then finish when we get to Wissington Beak Factory. And your practice expedition is completed when you've completed the skills checklist, which we'll send you, and you have got all those 20 conditions sorted, right? When we think that you are competent and safe to undertake a remotely supervised expedition. So parents, on the assessed expedition, we are not with them, we meet them, but as a group, we need to make sure that they are competent to be able to do this on their own, okay? So what then happens? You then are going to do the assessed expedition. The assessed expedition is 3 days and 2 nights, and we run this on the Cam Rivers. Now, not quite sure where we're going to start this. We'll either start it at Huntingdon, or we'll start it at Erith. So I've got kind of photos that kind of show, but basically this is a photo starting at Erith. Okay, and the first thing you'll do is go through Hermitage Loch. If you start at Huntington, you actually go through loads and loads of lochs, and you end up going through St Ives and coming down to Erith and camping at a campsite we've got just past Erith. If we start at Erith, you'll come through Hermitage Loch, you'll go down the Old West, which is just a beautiful river, quite narrow, and you'll camp at Duckett's Farm. So when you get to the end of the Old West, you'll turn right and you'll end up at Duckett's Farm. And then depending on what you're doing, you'll camp there. Always camping by the river's beautiful. Okay, and then you'll either, depending on where you've started, go up towards Cambridge and finish at Chesterton, or you'll go down river and you'll then end up camping at the Millennium campsite again. They're there with their ponchos, and you'll enjoy that, or you'll go up to Chesterton. That we've just got to leave that to see what the weather's doing and also what the staff are thinking. Okay, so the aim will be that when you've done that, you will have completed a 3-day expedition on your own with all the stuff you need in those blue barrels. So you're self-sufficient, you are doing it as a group, and we are just supporting you. So it's you as a group of friends going off, doing an adventure and enjoying it, and we're just there to support you. Okay, it's a success. You will have completed your silver expedition when you fulfilled all the 20 conditions. The only thing that's left to do is for us to write an assessor's report. So we write the assessor's report on everybody, and then you will do a presentation on your aim. Okay. The good thing for you is that because we're both Rod and I are British Canoe Union coaches, we're personal performance award providers. So at the end of your practice expedition, you will get your paddle start award. At the end of your assessed expedition, you'll get your discover award. So it's just another piece of paper just to prove that actually you'll be really competent, because you will have done 5 days paddling, which is a lot more than lots of other people do. Just a couple of things to kind of tell you about. There is a Joy of Adventure Facebook page. It's often parents that are more interested in this than young people. We do have an Instagram account now as well, but the Facebook page, if you look back on that now, you'll see loads of photos of young people over the last X number of years who've done expedition. I also post there if I see anything that's useful. So often Aldi have some really good deals on stuff that I think might be useful for people. So if I see that, I then post that on the Facebook page so that you can see that. And any adventures that I happen to be doing in the off season, I'll put that on there as well. So practically, what do you need to do now? Hopefully you've been sent the booking forms. If you've not been sent them, then we will just email me and I'll send them to you. You do need to have an EDV account. So those of you who are coming from Littleport, Mrs. Emmis will sort that out. If you're not coming from Littleport, it does need to be through your school or the Scouts or a DAV centre. There is a Google form to fill out. So we have to have your booking forms as hard copy, but then there's a Google Meggle form. You need to sort out your payment, and then we'll sort out a date for our Zoom training where you'll do your navigation and your first aid. And then we'll do pre-expedition training just a couple of times. So we'll probably have 3 trainings, just kind of keep in touch with you so that you know what's happening. You can ask us questions, but we're always really, really happy for you to email us and ask us questions. This is our email address, dav@joyofadventure.co.uk. I just live on the other side of Cambridge, so between Cambridge and Newmarket, but my dad still lives down at Blackhorse Drove, so I am often bypassing Littleport, and I keep bringing kit that I discover in to the school. So any of you that are watching this on Zoom and have got questions and you're watching it later, then do email us. For those of you who've been watching it live, we'll finish the recording now and you can ask questions directly.